Hi, I'm Ken Brusso, and I've prepared a short presentation for you to take you through the main features of the StyleView assessment model. And I'm just going to share my screen with you right now, and we'll go through that presentation. So StyleView is all about decision making. And the focus is on how people make decisions, not how good the decisions are, not how smart anyone is. And we concentrate on decision making because this decision making is central to almost everything we do. Throughout the day, we make all kinds of decisions. Some we don't even notice we're making, and some decisions are big and they extend out over time. They may involve working or collaborating with other people. Despite its centrality, decision-making is a process that differs markedly between people. People differ greatly in how they go about this very central process of making decisions. So we call these different ways of thinking and decision-making styles of decision-making. And styles are simply habits that we pick up over time through experience. The StyleView assessment model defines 4 basic decision styles. And those 4 styles differ from each other in 2 important ways. One way is the amount of information that's taken into account when people go about making decisions. People are highly variable in this. Some people keep the focus on just a very few pieces of pertinent information. Other people take in lots of information. The other dimension is focus. And it's some people's inclination to zero in on a particular goal or objective when they're making decisions, whereas other people will have a number of goals, objectives, and outcomes they're looking to achieve. So on the basis of those 2 dimensions, we can define 4 fundamentally different styles. 2 of the styles I'm going to talk about are what we call satisficing styles. They're action-oriented. They're the ones that you just grab a few key facts and quickly arrive at a decision. And they contrast with styles I call maximizing styles. And when people are in this maximizing frame of mind, they want to take in a lot of information before they're going to feel ready to pull the trigger and make a decision. That's the horizontal axis. Action-oriented on the left, analytic on the right. The top row of this matrix, we place in that row what we call unifocus styles. And then those are the styles in which, when a person's in one of those 2 styles, they will want to focus on a particular goal or objective that they have in mind that stands out as more important or more immediate than other goals and objectives. And once they find a path to achieve that goal or objective, they're going to stick with it. They'll stay the path. They're very steady styles. On the bottom row of this matrix, we place multi-focus styles. And when a person's in a multi-focus frame of mind, the chances are that person has a number of different goals, objectives, and outcomes that person is looking to achieve. And consequently, there's not going to be any one pathway to achieve those multiple objectives. So when people make decisions in that mode, those decisions are likely to have a number of different parts. And as likely as not, those parts may shift and change over time as the situation they're looking at itself changes and evolves. So those 2 styles on the bottom rung here are much more variable than the unifocus styles on the top row. Again, I want you to understand, there's nothing absolutely good about any one of these 4 styles we're going to talk about. They all have potential strong points and potential weak points. So now we can talk about some very specific styles. On this top left-hand corner here, we have a style we call decisive. And that's a style where if you're in that mode, you're going to grab some key facts and quickly make a decision. And once you make that decision, you're going to stick with it. You'll stay the course. You stay on that path. You're not going to waver. You put all the thinking behind you at that point, and you get things done. This style we call flexible is also a satisfying, fast-moving style. Makes quick decisions. But in contrast to the decisive style, this one is much more likely to adapt different strategies, different tactics over time. For the simple reason that when you're in that mode, you're going to see the world as a changing place. So what worked yesterday won't necessarily work today. It only makes sense to reevaluate and maybe make another decision quite quickly, perhaps. So that's the satisfying, action-oriented side of this matrix. Now we move into more serious territory, the more analytic, maximizing styles. And the first one we come to here is this one I call hierarchic. It's a very focused, very analytic way of thinking. So if you're in the hierarchic mode, your aim is to achieve a particular objective and not just kind of hit it. You want to hit it square in the middle. You want to come up with the best decision that you can make. It's very important to do that. And then once you arrive at a decision, you'll have a plan, a strategy in mind, and you're going to stick with that plan until you achieve the objective you set out to achieve. That's the hierarchic mode. The last of the four styles here is the one I call integrative. And like its hierarchic cousin, it's an analytic style. A lot of thinking goes on. But like its flexible cousin, it's multi-focus. So when you're in the integrative mode, chances are you're going to look at issues deeply, like the hierarchic would, but also broadly. You're going to see the issue in terms of maybe its multiple parts and how the different parts interact with each other. And you'll come up with plans that themselves will have different parts and strategies. And you, over time, you might modify your plan. You're not going to throw it out the window and just do something else. But the chances are it's going to be a living thing, your plan, and you're likely to tweak it and modify it as time goes on. So those are the four basic styles of decision making, and you can see that they're quite different from each other. The integrative and the decisive styles are absolutely opposite. The hierarchic and the flexible styles are absolutely opposite. Now, if you were to do the StyleView assessment, you'd get two different profiles, same four styles, but twice. And the distinction I'm making here is probably one of the more important aspects of the StyleView model. So one of the profiles you get, I refer to as interpersonal role styles. And this is the mode of thinking, this profile, the frame of mind you'll be in when you're watching yourself. And you feel the need to behave in an appropriate way. You'll feel perhaps the eyes of other people on you. And this is most likely when you're meeting people for the first time. Maybe you're in a formal situation like a meeting or a lot of other people around, especially if you don't know those other people real well. You'll be in your interpersonal role style profile. But if the meeting breaks up and you walk back down the hall to your office, somewhere on that walk, likely as not, you're going to snap into what I refer to as operating style. An operating style is what happens when people are no longer thinking about themselves. Whatever they're doing, they're just doing as a matter of habit. They're not thinking about how they're thinking. Their attention is concentrated on some issue or issues that they're trying to solve. And that's most likely when a person is by herself or himself, or maybe working with just a few close associates with whom the person is quite familiar. Now, the reason we make this distinction is simply because most of us have really very different interpersonal role style profiles compared to our operating style profiles. And most of us are a little bit aware of our interpersonal role styles. And what I mean by that is if I was to describe the styles as I just have, and I'd say, what do you think your style is? People will generally give me an answer that kind of corresponds to their interpersonal role style profile if they've done the StyleView assessment. But very likely, they don't have a clue about operating style. They don't even see that at all. Or whatever they think their style is, well, that's it, that's their style. Other people who come to know them well and work very closely with them, they may see their operating style profile. And likewise, the person himself or herself may see the other people's operating styles when no one's looking at themselves. This is what happens. So we've assessed well over 1 million people worldwide, leaders, managers, executives, technical specialists. And what we see very clearly is that these two profiles, interpersonal role style versus operating style, differ often dramatically among people. Most of us have two very different profiles, and we're usually not all that much aware of our operating style profile for the simple reason that when we're in operating style, we're not watching ourselves. The camera's not running. We're not recording what we're doing. So that doesn't stick in the head. We don't see that. We do see our role styles because we're watching ourselves. We're in that mode. So as a result, StyleView is a great tool for achieving very unique self-insights that some of us will never achieve any other way. It's really difficult to step back and see these qualities and characteristics of thinking and decision-making in ourselves. And now I'd like to say a few words about the research that's gone on over the years to develop, first of all, and then later on validate the StyleView assessment of decision-making styles. The research has involved basically two strategies, beginning with laboratory research on subjects put in laboratory situations and given problems to solve, decisions to make, and then focusing on their behavior. And this was used early on for what we call construct validation, which is simply to make sure that when we think we're measuring decision styles, we actually are measuring decision styles and ways of thinking. And then later on, field studies conducted in a wide range of circumstances in which a large number of individuals were studied in different occupational categories, sales, compared with information technology, studies of the profile differences between individuals who were more or less successful in their respective positions and functions, and studies of what happens over time for career success as we look at people climbing, for example, the executive ladder. This is a picture of a typical university behavior laboratory. The studies were mainly conducted at Princeton and the University of Southern California. This picture isn't at either one of those places. It's just a picture of a typical university behavior research lab. So students would be recruited as subjects to participate in various laboratory experiments. Their behavior was observed by a one-way mirror, which you can see over here on the left side of this picture. The subjects would be given structured problem-solving tasks and specific amounts of information to use in the problem-solving. And then observations and measurements would be collected to gauge the amount of information that they were actually utilizing in their problem-solving and decision-making. Their behavior then would be correlated with the results of, for example, early versions of decision style questionnaires to measure decision styles. And those studies became the basis for the StyleView assessment system that we use today. The field studies were conducted by Mike Driver, by me, and other colleagues and students in the 40-year period spanning from about 1970 to 2010. In which statistical analyses were conducted looking at the decision styles of large numbers of people in different occupational categories. For example, one big study focused on functional specialists in the insurance industry and measured their relative performance. Another study was conducted of the information processing of business managers, career placement of U.S. Air Force officers, sales success, actual measured sales success of salespeople in the information technology industry, and the performance of management information systems specialists, the success, relative success of entrepreneurs, and profile differences between almost 20,000 North American versus Asian managers and executives. Study I'd like to comment on here that's of special interest is one that we published in the Harvard Business Review, in which we studied the success of thousands of managers and executives in a wide range of industries, types of organizations, management levels. So far as we know, it's the largest study of its kind ever published. We looked at over 120,000 managers and executives. They were in a lot of different industries, different types of organizations, different levels of management. So consequently, the findings from this study are highly generalizable. They're not just specific to any one niche. We could apply them over a wide range of circumstances. The findings showed sharp profile differences between the most and least successful managers and executives at each management level. And the findings also showed a very interesting, smooth progression of changing decision style profiles that were associated with success at climbing the executive ladder. I'll give you a little peek at some of the findings here. This is the interpersonal role style, side, the social side of decision styles. This is how people behave when they're watching themselves and they're thinking about themselves. So you can see the multicolored lines here reflect different styles. Red is decisive, yellow is flexible, green is hierarchic, blue is integrative. So you can see that fast, focused, decisive way of thinking starts off high and then gradually goes down at each and every step on the executive ladder. Yellow and blue, flexible and integrative styles increase at each level on the executive ladder. So you can see that the profile associated with success, remember that all these people are successful, at the supervisor level on the left is sharply different from the profile of the most senior executives, C-suite executives on the very right side here. The transition comes at kind of the second level up on the management ladder, in which we see a change taking place, and then that change continues at each successive step on the ladder. That change isn't just a change. The profile does a complete 180-degree flip there. So these are the most successful managers. These were the least successful managers and executives, the bottom 20%. And you can see, without going into a lot of analysis, at a glance, that the profiles of the least successful are sharply different from the profiles of the most successful managers and executives. This is the operating style profile, the behavior that comes out when people aren't really thinking about themselves, they're just going about things in whatever way comes to them most naturally. So in this case, here again, the top 20%, the most successful, you see that blue integrative and green hierarchic line both lines are creeping up at each step on the executive ladder, whereas the more action-oriented, flexible yellow and red decisive styles sink as you go up the executive ladder. So consequently, here again, the profiles associated with success at the junior level, those first-line supervisors, is sharply different from the profile of people at the senior-most levels of management. And then here again, this is the least successful 20%, looking at the operating styles. And you don't need to do any statistical analysis to see at a glance that these profiles of the least successful are really markedly different from those of the most successful. Consequently, based upon all of this, 50 years of university laboratory studies, field studies, and application with many thousands of people in all kinds of circumstances and situations in industry, we feel pretty confident that we can conclude that decision style profiling is highly applicable across industries, across cultures, across levels of management and functional positions. We see that different types of work in different cultures actually require different ways of decision-making, different styles of decision-making. And on the basis of this, we have a strong foundation for creating benchmark profiles of success that we use for recruiting, selection, and development of executives and leaders, as well as for functional specialists. So stepping back, looking at this big picture, we feel it's safe to conclude that decision-making is universally relevant and timelessly important.